Thank you. All right, so that was it for student concerns. So we'll move into roll call. I've already taken attendance. It looks like the only 3 people or 4 people are Neelan that are missing, Sophie, Sherm, and Atara. Everyone else is here. So with that, I will call the 24th meeting of the 2019-2020 legislative session to order. The time is 7:19. So before we start, I know that last meeting, the pro tem and parliamentarian divided and conquered the points and motions. So all points and motions should be directed to them over DM'd Slack. I think Kisley should be the point of contact on, or pro tem should be the point of contact on that, because it seemed as though last time I wasn't able to keep track of everything, and I wanted to be fair for everyone. All right, so we'll do the approval of the minutes. So let me open the participants list so I can sorry. One sec. So has everyone had a chance to read the minutes? Are there any seconds on the minutes? Just indicate that with a yes. Are there any, so with that, perfect, thank you. Minutes are approved. There's nothing during speaker's time. Finance report, Mr. Vice President.
How are y'all doing? Really quick, just be aware that the application is live for, can y'all hear me now? Yeah. Just be aware that the application is live for the April deadline. This is for clubs to submit for the next year. Also, because of time constraints, and in order to be the most equitable to students, to be a certified officer, you now have to pass a list, pass a quiz, and it's very quick. 10 questions. Really, they can look on the finance website, get all of the answers. It's not really difficult stuff. But yeah, that's it. Those are the accounts.
Speaker, there's a motion by the off-campus neighboring representative.
Sure.
Thanks. So this is in the bylaws, Article 5, Section 6, Subsection A, Paragraph 4, Subparagraph 4. I move that the legislature vote on whether to initiate an impeachment investigation to the speaker.
Sure, I'll step down and actually leave the meeting. Or sorry, are there any seconds to the motion? Indicate that with a yes.
I think it's...
Seeing that there are seconds, I will head out.
Okay. David?
Could I make a quick motion to take this off of the live stream? Is that allowed right now?
Just a second.
Okay.
We'll vote on that before. David?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, can you, 2 things. Can you just change your name and make me the host as well?
Yes, apologies. Renaming self. And then am I the sole host?
You have an unstable internet.
It show me as the sole hosts.
Okay. Okay. So before that, there is a point of Cambridge.
Oh, yes. Okay. Host. I know. You've been. Okay.
Point of information, I'm having trouble hearing anything that anyone is saying.
Yeah, that was Mr. Parliamentarian. We fixed that.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay. Cambridge representative, you had, can you repeat what you were saying?
Yeah, I think it's a personal privilege or a point of order, but I feel like we should take this off of the live stream, especially since we are debating about a certain person who has left the meeting. I feel like this shouldn't be all over the internet.
I would second that.
Okay. If there are any objections, you can do a no on the participants chat. Yeah.
Okay.
I had a point of order for first reading, but I didn't know who I should.
Yeah, if you want to do that now.
Oh, okay. I just had a point of order to reorder business for the first bill, the PrideWorks Inclusivity Online Workshop, to be moved to second reading. It was going to be a physical event with S&P, but it already had gone through first reading and was approved by the committees, but we had to pull it back because of the COVID-19. But now because it's online, just kind of reiterating or revamping it to be online.
Thank you. Are there any seconds on this motion? I'll clear all. Are there any seconds? Are there any objections to moving it to second reading? Great. So moved. Next, we have an act funding and advertisement in the 2020 Diamondback Orientation Guide sponsored by the Cambridge representative. That's going to be finance as a primary and comms as secondary. Then we have S200408C, a resolution endorsing an all mail-in primary for Maryland's June 2nd presidential election, sponsored by the Freshman Connection rep. I believe there might.
I have the motion to reorder business.
Okay, to move it to second reading.
Yes.
Are there any seconds on that motion? Are there any objections? Seeing none, so moved. All right, next we have S200408D, a resolution urging administration to postpone spring 2020 commencement ceremony sponsored by the Bds representative. And that will be going to student affairs. Then we have S200408E, an act allocating money to the Student Crisis Fund sponsored by the business or BSOS representative and the business representative. That will be going to financial affairs.
I have a motion.
Sorry?
Seeing that it's emergency legislation, I motion to move it to second reading calendar.
All right, so I believe per the bylaws, to move any finance bill, it needs to have the approval of the VP of Finance.
It does not have the approval. It'll go through the thing. It's not that time
All right,
sensitive.
thank you. And then, so we'll remain on first reading calendar. And then we have S200408F, a resolution urging administration to roll over remaining student dining dollar balances to the fall 2020 semester, sponsored by the first year representative. I believe there might be a motion on this.
Yeah, motion to reorder business and move it to second reading calendar.
Are there any seconds on this motion? Please, if anyone has a second. Our hand raises seconds. You can do, okay. Any objections? Do the X if there's any objections.
Or actually, no, but no, can I just have a point of information real fast?
Sure.
Can I ask as to why in particular you want to move this up second? Like just considering it's like a rollover, like why it just needs to be voted on now. I'm just genuinely curious.
I'll direct that to the motions or the bill sponsor first year rep.
Yeah, because now that it's fresh in administration's mind to start to start giving credits out for room and board, I want to make sure that it's pressed there that this is stuff we've already paid for. And that if you read the bill toward the end, we're only getting credit back for about between 51 and 55% of the semester, despite being on campus for less than 40%. And part of that is meals. And so for remaining dining dollar balances, I figured that's an easy thing to move from what we've already paid for from this semester that we won't be using. And so while it's motion administration.
Okay, so I'll ask again. Are there any seconds on the motions? If you could do checks for yeses. Thank you. Are there any objections? Seeing none, so moved.
Thank you.
Right, now we'll move into second reading calendar. We've got S200401A, a resolution in support of the creation of a peer support program for students in Freshman Connection, sponsored by the Freshman Connection representative. Are there any, well, we finished student concerns. So is there a committee report? I believe that should be from the pro tem. Is the pro tem here?
I attended the meeting, if that helps.
Yeah, sure. At this point, I don't know where he went.
There were no addendums. Everybody said it looked great and gave it. Everybody voted for it except for Pro Temp because he was leading the meeting.
So 901.
Yeah.
Was the vote, and there were no amendments that I see. All right.
I can second that. I was also in the meeting.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So and then there's so I'll take any motion on the committee report. If someone could verbally say a motion. Or not. I'll just
Motion to approve the committee report.
thank you. Are there any seconds?
Second.
Any objections? All right, hearing none, so approved. There's no secondary committee report. Thank you. So is the body ready for the main question? All right, not seeing any no's, we'll move into a period of voting. Checks are yes on the bill, X's are no on the bills, hand raises are abstains. Please vote. All right, great. So with a vote of 29 to 0 to 1, the bill passes. Congratulations. Next, we'll move into S200401B, a resolution in support of the creation of an optional University 100 module for Freshman Connection students, sponsored by the Freshman Connection representative. Is there a committee report?
Yep, there is a committee report. I'm sorry, I couldn't go in the last one. So yeah, it was pretty straightforward. There were no objections to this, no amendments as well. The vote was 10 to 0 to 1.
Great, thank you. I'll take any motion on the committee report.
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Are there any seconds?
Second.
Any objections? Hearing none, so approved. Is the body ready for the main question?
Yes.
All right, hearing yes, we'll move into a period of voting. Again, all in favor vote checks, all against vote X's, and abstaining, please raise your hand. All right, again, with a vote of 29 to 0 to 1, it passes. Congratulations. Next, we've got S200408A, a resolution supporting the Pride Works Inclusivity Online Workshop on Sexual Assault Prevention, sponsored prevention event sponsored by the business representative. Since it was pushed up, there is no committee, or
There is a committee report.
the old committee, yeah.
Yeah, the old committee report. Can I give that one?
So was comms primary on this one?
This one was a workshop. So it was originally finance as primary and S&P as secondary.
Okay, so we'll make S&P primary and then comms secondary. Go for it.
Okay, so yeah, so this workshop, we were originally going to do it on campus. Obviously, we can't do that anymore, so that's why the bill got pulled. And then we found some different ways that we could still do it. So we're going to be doing this online. And I'm really excited about it because we can do sexual assault prevention work and also highlight some underrepresented and underserved groups when it comes to S&P related issues. The committee didn't have any issues with it. We were all really excited, and the vote was 20-0 to 1. And I can answer any questions.
You said 22 to
0 to 1. Sorry.
No. I just didn't catch it. Okay. All right, I'll take any motion on this committee report then. You can assume there's a motion to approve. Are there any seconds?
Second.
Thank you. Any objections? Hearing none, so approved. Is the body ready for the main question?
Yep.
Thank you. So we'll move into a period of voting. All in favor, checks. All opposed, X's, abstaining. Great. With a vote of 29 to 0 to 1, it passes. Congrats. I think this is the first virtual event that we're like sponsoring. This will be exciting. S200408C, a resolution endorsing an all-male in primary for Maryland's June 2nd presidential election. There was no committee report. So is the body ready? Sorry?
There's not an official committee. Sorry, just want to hop in and say there's not an official committee report.
Please go ahead.
But
I'm not sure if you had seen it.
Yeah, but we talked about the idea as it was being written in committee, and it was unanimously supported to be like introduced when we spoke about it in our committee meeting last week. So
great. Well, thank you for that unofficial committee report. So there are amendments. Would the bill sponsor look at these as friendly?
Yes.
So I'll put them in. It just seems like dates and numbers. Great.
Yes, correct.
So is the body ready for the main question?
Yes.
Hearing yes, we'll move into a period of voting. All in favor will be checks. All opposed, X's. All abstaining, hands. Some new people joined us. All right, with a vote of 31 to 0 to 1. This is and lastly, S200408F, a resolution urging administration to roll over remaining student dining dollars balances to the fall 2020 semester. To anyone's knowledge, is there any type of committee report on this? I don't think so. So I guess, is the body ready for the main question?
yes.
I just want to say that there was amendments made toward the end of it by the business representative that I view as friendly.
Yeah, 2 amendments that I have already added that he views as friendly. So
great, thank you. So now is the body ready for the main question?
Yep.
Great. So we'll move into a period of voting. In favor are checks, opposed are X's. Great. And with a vote of 31 to 0 to 1, this bill passes as well.
Thank you all.
All right. There are no tabled bills. Are there any follow-ups on previously passed bills?
Yes, I have a quick follow-up from the housing bill. So the student task force has been working, and this week, tomorrow and the next day, we will be emailing key admin about the housing priorities. It has kind of come to a little bit of a standstill just because a lot of like halting evictions, like that's kind of passed already. So if anybody like wants to work with me in the task force about any other things to do with the housing situation, we could really use more hands on deck. Thanks.
I have another one if that's okay.
Yeah, let's do it.
Great. So I just want to follow up on culture at UMD, the big project I was trying to pull off the entire year, and then coronavirus kind of hit it. A lot of people have been expressing support on revamping it towards a program that SGA supports in order to highlight the things that all student groups do during this quarantine. So in creative ways, how they're able to still be a club while during this quarantine session. For example, some groups are on Discord, other people are having Minecraft servers, other people are on Zoom calls. So if anybody wants to go look into this with me and anybody wants to support me while figuring this replacement to culture at UMD, feel free to talk to me. Thank you.
Are there any other follow-ups on recently passed bills? Great, we'll move into exec updates, if there are any. Just make sure you guys are reading the...
Yes, sorry. I'm trying to figure out if so first the city council liaison asked me to read something. City updates, he saw the detailed site plan of the Greystar development, which is is that development by where Marathon is currently. He said it looked great, but they talked a little bit about gentrifying and about how like that should be people need to be cautious about that. He also asked if people have any retail recs to let him know. Also, the city council allocated $12K in emergency funding for Meals on Wheels, and he is currently working with frats on a philanthropy event for them too. If anyone is interested in local donations, CP Food Bank and Meals on Wheels need help. And then he is also working with 2 council members to send a letter to the county about potential rent freezes. His original route didn't go so well, so that is what is going on. From my end, the only person to seem to actually read my minutes last week was the off-campus neighboring rep. I don't write these updates for myself. I write them for you guys. So please read them. I don't have to put as much thought or detail into them as I do, but I try to, because that is something that has constantly been expressed to me. So since I wrote them out, I'm not going to read them, but please let me know if you have any questions or want to follow up about anything.
Great, thank you. I know our academic affairs VP is feeling under the weather. Student affairs. All right, great. So we'll move into cabinet update. If you have an update, please briefly share. Any cabinet updates?
Did you say cabinet? Okay, I have one.
Please.
Hello, everybody. So it is Sexual Assault Awareness Month. I just want to remind everybody about some of the resources that are still available. I have a link to MCASA's website on my updates. They're updating the resources that they have in Maryland every day. Please find some ways that you're comfortable in participating in Sexual Assault Awareness Month, even if that just means practicing self-care. Take part in the 30 days of Sexual Assault Awareness Month challenges that we're posting on the Instagram story. Tomorrow's Do Your Part Through Art, so all you have to do is take a picture of something that you've colored or drawn and share it. Shout out to Tori and Sherm for being 2 of the people that have been really consistently participating in that. I've been working really hard, and the committee has been working really hard to put things out even while we're all virtual. So it really does make a difference when you all participate, because that's really the one way that we're spreading information about this during quarantine. So if you're not sharing it, then your network might not be getting that information. Check out these webinars. I have a whole what's it called, a spreadsheet of webinars that you can watch about a bunch of different things. You can watch one about, I don't know, everybody's watching the Tiger King. There's one about relationships and the Tiger King. So a lot of them are really relevant. And thank you all for passing the bill about the Pride Works workshop. Thank you to Jamie for your hard work on that. That's going to be happening hopefully Thursday, April 23rd at 5 p.m. We're still waiting on the confirmation from MCASA, but we're going to be sending out an RSVP form so that everybody can get the relevant information. I'm hoping to have that out by tomorrow so that you all can share it. And then lastly, if anybody has any questions about any SMP bills or related things, because I know some of that was brought up today, please just feel free to reach out to me. Thanks. That's it.
Great, thank you. Any other cabinet updates?
From diversity and inclusion, we are at the moment working on a survey, one for the student body and one for the actual members of SGA, to talk more about how the committee can work better at working on or addressing diversity issues, and specifically asking SGA members if you guys have had any complaints brought forward to you from any of your constituents or things like that. But we plan on having that finalized within the next week to have out to you guys. And we're also working on formulating the plans for a webinar to discuss COVID-19 and race and the intersections between that, and the ways that race and COVID-19 interact, and just to continue engagement online. And we are also working on forming a one-pager, because we had been hearing some complaints from students about there was a lack of practice of practicing inclusive language, whether that be in GBM or in interpersonal interactions. So those are things that we have on the way.
Great, well, thank you. Any other cabinet updates?
Yeah, I just quickly, this is for civic engagement, just quickly wanted to reiterate, I wrote out a lot on my update sheet, but the importance of the census. This is a really big deal for the College Park community. Each person who doesn't fill it out loses over $18,000 for College Park over a 10-year period. That money goes to things as simple as roads and public transportation, but also federal Pell Grants and student wellness services. So it's really important that everyone does their part.
And I'm working this week with the Office of Strategic Communications on campus and the Office of Community Engagement to get things on Instagram graphics going that I hope you guys will all share once they're out, and I'll put that on your radar and Slack. And I'll just keep it brief. I have a couple more updates that you guys can read through on my sheet, but that's probably the most important one.
Great, thank you. All right. So we'll move into comments of the good of the council. If there's any.
Can I just talk then? Okay. Yeah, I just wanted, I'm not gonna, I know that during the student concerns, there was a lot of student concerns regarding the potential divestment bill. And as some of you probably know, I have been really involved with the Club Students for Justice in Palestine, and I was listening very closely to all of the students' concerns. There was a few misconceptions about the divestment resolution. I don't want to address that now because I want to respect everyone's time. And I know we just had a really emotional meeting. But I will be addressing that in the Slack within the next 1 or 2 days. So I just wanted to say that.
Great, thank you. You can just unmute yourselves. But I think, yep.
All right. I just wanted to say that I really appreciate the people who aren't on Ledge, who are consistently in the meetings and stay till the end. Shout out to Ireland and Elena. I know it definitely sucks and it's a lot more convenient to just put your updates in and not really speak on them. But I really appreciate that you guys are still showing up and making sure that you're still participating as much as possible. So yeah, I just wanted to highlight that.
I just wanted to say thank you to everyone for supporting my bills. Thank you, everyone.
I just want to say thank you, everyone, for supporting the PrideWorks bill. Also, it is, even though it is an LGBTQ plus bill, it's open to everyone, allies especially. So if all y'all can come out as well, that'd be awesome. And yeah, thank you.
In the same vein, just want to say thank you all for supporting my bill too. It's a shame, especially for our seniors who we all have to leave campus early this semester. And I just want to make sure that students get what they paid for, and hopefully that you can get either comparable compensation or able to reuse those dining dollars next semester without losing that money. So thank you guys for your support.
One quick thing, I know a lot of you are BSOS majors. The Dean Student Advisory Council has their applications open until Monday. So if you are interested in getting more involved in the college, it's a really great opportunity. You get to meet with the dean on basically a weekly basis. So if you're interested in more information on that, please ask me or Jinwook because we were both on that council.
All right. Ralph time. So last time I was here, it was BSOS rep Alyssa. I don't know, what's the status of that?
I didn't get Ralph, clearly. But I don't know. I didn't make a PowerPoint or anything. I was just at home. I honestly had a really horrible week. I've been really sad and stuff. So yeah, I'm not gonna go into that. But instead of the normal Ralph time, I just wanted to give a bunch of shout outs to people and then say who I would give it to, just so that we can end this on a little bit of a positive note, hopefully. So I wanted to just shout out Nathan, who's one of the superstar freshmen with all the freshmen who are doing so great with his 3 bills today. Also big shout out to Josie, big shout out to Quentin, and to everybody who spoke during the debate, Hannah Kark, I know was hard, speaking against people, and it was getting kind of emotional and stuff. And yeah, so the person that I would give Ralph to is going to be someone that I've known for a long time, for a few years before I joined this organization. And it would be Alawi, because for those of you who...
Oh, that's crazy. Who would have thought?
Yeah, we were actually on the same ticket last year. And so it's been really cool just getting to know everybody else. And I love everybody else too, but just a special place in my heart for Alawi. And I know that it hasn't been easy for him just because of a lot of stuff like with ethics and different stuff like that. And I just really appreciate him always showing interest in everybody's initiatives, you know, not just his own. Yeah, that's it. That's all I got.
That's wow. All right. I don't know what I'm gonna do with him, but thank you so much. This means a lot. Thank you. This feels good.
I mean, I currently have her, so we could just like figure something out.
how much is a FedEx charge right now?
Nah, you guys don't do that to the FedEx workers. Come on.
That's true. Oh man.
All right. Well, with that, I'll take any motion. Any seconds?
Second.
Any objections? Hearing none, so adjourned. Have a good night, everyone.